Welcome to Safety and Social Media. I'm glad you're all here. I know this is a super busy time of year for so many people. Everyone's busy all the time anyway, but with back to school, sometimes it's even more busy. So we appreciate you being here and taking the time to have this conversation with us. Joseph and I were chatting earlier when he first got on about how we're not having enough conversations about how to be safe on the internet and in social media. So I think it's super important that we do have this conversation. So absolutely. Thank you, Joseph. So I'm just going to go through real quick and kind of introduce Achieva for anyone who is not familiar. I am Melissa Skiffin. I am a disability advocate here at Achieva. My 5-year anniversary is actually Monday, so I've been with Achieva for almost 5 years. I'm also the parent of a middle schooler, which is hard to say. Kiefer, my son started middle school last week, so this topic is important to me professionally, but as the parent of a middle school child, it's also very important to me personally. So I'm glad you're all here to learn along with me. Welcome to Achieva Advocacy and Family Supports. The ARC of Greater Pittsburgh and the ARC of Erie County are members of the Achieva family of organizations. And under the Achieva family of organizations, the ARC of Greater Pittsburgh offers technical assistance, systemic advocacy, individual advocacy, special education advocacy, adult advocacy. I always think advocacy is such a broad term, and I have yet to find something that doesn't fit under the umbrella of what we advocates can support a person with a disability or their family with. So then here's just a little graphic, Achieva family of organizations. We have Achieva Support, Resource, the ARC of Greater Pittsburgh, the Family Trust, Autism Connection, and the ARC of Erie County. And as you can see on this map, we're kind of all over the Commonwealth for some of our departments, some of our Achieva family organizations. Achieva Advocacy specifically supports Westmoreland, Allegheny, Beaver, and Erie County. So that's just kind of a visual of where we are and where we support people. I always like to include our mission and vision. Achieva advocates with, empowers, and supports people with disabilities and their families throughout their lives. And our vision is that Achieva envisions a community where people with disabilities lead lives of personal significance. And then our core values: respect, passion, ethics, change, and team. So that's just a little Achieva introduction. This is our contact information. You will all be getting an email from me after this session, probably tomorrow. If not tomorrow, it'll be Tuesday, and you'll have my contact information. If you want to get in touch with me directly, you're absolutely welcome to do that, and I'll do anything that I can to help. All right, it looks like we have some professional community members here, educator, family members of a person with a disability, and some self-advocates, people with disabilities here. So fantastic. What a nice group. What a nice, bright, nice, diverse group of people we have here. This is so exciting to see. So I'll leave the poll open. If you're just joining or you join late, the poll will be there for you. So without further ado, I am going to be quiet, which is not something that comes easy for me. And I am going to introduce Kim from the Blackburn Center. When I started with Achieva, as I mentioned, almost 5 years ago, one of the first partnerships that I made, and it has been such a wonderful partnership, is working with the Blackburn Center. Just the work that they do to support people in our community, all people in our community, is just amazing. So Kim, without further ado, I will turn it over to you. You can just let me know when to move your slides forward.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, hello everybody. My name is Kim. I work for Blackburn Center. I have worked for Blackburn Center a long time, and what I do there is I'm an educator. I'm an education specialist. My primary function at Blackburn Center is to go into schools. So I'm in classrooms all over Westmoreland County throughout the school year. We do a lot of work with internet safety with students. We also do a lot of work with how to recognize child abuse. We talk a lot about bullying. We do a lot with how to have healthy relationships, how to recognize an unhealthy or abusive or controlling or possessive relationship. We talk a lot about sexual assault and consent, what consent looks like. So those are some of the big things. We talk a lot about empathy, almost always. We're talking about empathy and boundaries. So those are the topics that I tend to talk about most. And I've been asked to join you this evening and talk about the internet a little bit and some social media things. Now, before I get into all of that, I also would just like to introduce Blackburn Center a little bit. If you're not familiar with Blackburn Center, we are a victim services agency. We work mostly with those who have experienced domestic violence and sexual assault, and then other violent crimes as well. But that's our primary function. But we also then, in probably the last 15 years or so, have been thinking a lot about root causes and what are the things in our culture, or what's going on that kind of supports these kinds of things happening. What supports people being harmful to each other, or what supports thinking that it's okay to be possessive and controlling in your relationship? What are some of those root causes, and can we think about those and talk about those and try to bring those into public spaces and awareness and conversations, so that then maybe some of these other things don't happen as much down the road. So that's a lot of what we do at Blackburn Center. As far as the victim services part, we have a hotline that anybody can call 24/7. A counselor always answers the phone. So it's a place anybody can call anytime. Easy way to speak with a counselor. Everything we do at Blackburn Center is free. It is confidential. We are not going to tell anybody about anything you tell us, unless it is about child abuse or someone is talking about doing serious harm to themselves or someone else. Other than that, we're going to keep everything confidential. That hotline is also anonymous. We don't know who people are when they call us on the hotline. And it is, unless you tell us, we're not going to have any idea who you are. And even if we ask straight up, you don't have to tell us who you are. So it's a place where someone can just stay completely anonymous. You can talk about whatever might be happening, ask questions, get information, especially if something is happening that feels embarrassing or difficult to talk about with someone face to face, or you're worried about somebody being angry or upset, or getting into trouble or whatever. The Blackburn Center hotline is a great resource for anybody, anytime. So we offer that. We also have a shelter for those who are experiencing intimate partner violence. We have advocates who will go to hospital emergency rooms if someone is assaulted sexually or physically. If they have injuries, or they want to get checked out at the hospital, they want medical attention, we will go with them. We have people who will meet with them. It doesn't matter, again, if it's in the middle of the night or the weekend or whatever, we will send somebody to be with that person and help them through that experience. So we do that. We also have legal advocates that help a lot with protection from abuse orders, but we can help with other things too. We have an attorney on our staff. So we have some limited legal help that we can give people. We provide programming like this. I go into the schools, as you heard. So we have a lot of ways that we can help people, especially if they are having problems in relationships. All right, so that's a little bit about Blackburn Center. And I see there's a question. So what is your question?
I was wondering, do you talk about like healthy foods and stuff at Blackburn Center?
That is not something that we talk about very much. No, we're more talking about how people treat each other. Although healthy foods is a very important topic.
Yeah.
Hi, I missed the beginning of it. So what is this for?
That's okay, Jasmine. The beginning was recorded and all you missed was me talking. So we're just getting to the presentation now and it's on safety and social media.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so before we jump in, there's also something, a couple of things that I would like to remind you about. So if we could go to the next slide, that would be great. That as we talk about things today, sometimes I don't think we're going to get into things that are too upsetting or graphic today. But if anything we're talking about makes you feel uncomfortable, or you're feeling nervous, or you're feeling upset, or you are feeling anxious in any way, I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself, whether that means going off camera for a while, stepping away for a while, whatever it is, you go ahead and do what you need to do. I'm also going to ask you to consider taking some nice deep breaths. So anytime we feel our minds wandering, or we're not focusing, or, whatever is going on, sometimes just paying attention to our breath can help us settle right down and bring everything right back. So let's take a moment and just breathe together, because this is a great thing. Anytime you are feeling anxious or you're nervous about something, you can come right back to this, and it is a great way to just calm at least a little bit. So we're going to think about taking a nice deep breath. So what I would like you to do is think about sitting up nice and straight. Try and give yourself a lot of room, give your lungs some space in there. So sit up nice and straight. I'd also encourage you, if you want to either put your hand, over your heart or down on your belly. I kind of like to put them on the sides of my ribs so I can feel what happens when I take a nice deep breath. So what we're going to concentrate on doing is taking that breath way down deep. So if you think about having a balloon down in your stomach, and when you breathe in, you want to expand that balloon. You're blowing up that balloon. So instead of breathing up here in the top of our lungs, when we see our chest move up and down, or our shoulders are moving when we breathe, is to try and send it way down into your belly. So really nothing up here is going to move very much. It's all going to be, we're going to try and make it all down lower in your lower ribs. So let's take a nice deep breath together through your nose if you can, and see if you can feel those ribs, that belly move out. Okay, so let's try taking a nice deep breath. And now let's let it out nice and slow through your mouth, or your nose is great if you can do that. Okay, let's try taking one more. And then out. So did you feel, I don't know if you were feeling your ribs, could you feel that? That nice deep breath, instead of up here where we tend to breathe when we're anxious and upset, way down deep in the belly, that can help calm us down. So if anything tonight makes you feel anxious or upset, that's one thing you can do, is just tune me out a little bit and think about your breath. Please participate as much as you'd like. Hopefully we can make this a conversation, so you're just not listening to me talk the whole time. So in the spirit of that, I wouldn't mind just hearing, you can either put it in the chat, or you can unmute and just tell me, what is it? We're going to be talking about social media and the internet, and ways to think about being safe in those spaces. What are you hoping we'll talk about tonight? So either if you could put it in your chat, or just shout it out. What are you hoping that we're going to think about tonight?
Well, I was hoping what we would think about tonight is how to remain safe when you get older and stuff. I'm in my late 30s now, and I'm a photographer. I like to take photos and stuff, a lot of things and whatnot. But as I get older and stuff, I want to make sure I'm safe on the internet and stuff, and not being accused of being creepy and stuff when I ask people to photograph or something. I made some policies about, like, I'm going to photograph people who I know well and stuff, that sort of thing. But then again, when I ask people, I had an incident on November 9th. I was kicked out of out of a cosplay group because somebody thought I creeped them out or something, and it really weighed heavily on me.
Okay.
And just how not to be perceived as creepy or something, like avoid online scams or something. Like if someone wants to send you something over the mail or something, unless you want something, that's one thing that's legit. But everything just like they offer to send you a free item or something, you have to be very careful with stuff. Do you know these people well enough? That sort of thing.
Okay. All right.
I want to learn about, and also want to learn about how to keep ourselves safe or something, and when to ask, when not to ask, to do things or something. Because people nowadays want to get paid for different things like photography work, that sort of thing. Because at this point in my life, I'm thinking about being very cognizant to the needs of others, and not always thinking about me or something. Because I want to make sure I'm not wasting people's time and stuff, and not making people uncomfortable, that sort of thing. I want to make sure how do I better communicate as I get older, especially with people who I hardly know, whether it's the opposite gender or not. I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good questions. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Anything-
Nina.
Okay. I would just like to learn if it's appropriate to buy things, like what way, like for people that I know, to buy things from them. That's what I like to talk about.
Okay. Anything else that people were kind of hoping to talk about? Okay, I guess generally we're going to talk about trying to be as safe as we can and those kinds of things as well.
Sure.
Anything else? Okay. All right. Well, let's just dive into everything then and see if we can answer these questions and go from there. So let's just start out with just very generally. What do you and your family use the internet for? What are your favorite ways? How do you use the internet? What are the things that you like to do? What are the biggest ways you use the internet, I guess, is a way of thinking about it. So again, you can put it in the chat. Okay, see Facebook, or you can shout it out. What are the ways that you tend to use the internet? Okay, to read the news.
Exploration.
Okay. Oh, it's a great way.
Instagram, Facebook, how to communicate or something, asking about different things or something, looking up the news, that sort of thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely. We look for news. We're looking for information. We can explore interests. Keep in touch. What's that? Facebook? Yeah. Keep in touch with friends, pay bills, research and buy things. Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, eBay shopping. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So would you say that most of you are using the internet every day, right? Okay. Amazon. Yeah. So it's a big part of our lives, and it's becoming more and more a part of our lives. It's getting almost hard to not have the internet. Without it, it's really limited sometimes in the things that we can find out about, or the things we can sign up for, or information we can get. So the internet has become a huge part of our lives. And I think most people would say that the internet is a good thing. It has been very helpful for a lot of people. If you can't get out, you can still log on. If you have internet service, you can log on and you can still get all this information. People can make friends. People can keep in touch with family that's far away. There are lots of great things about the internet. However, I think we would also agree that there are some negatives too. And that's why we're having this time together tonight, because we're concerned about that. We're concerned about those negative things and the way that people use the internet to hurt other people. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, please. So what I would like to suggest to you tonight, and we have people here from some people are here without their families, some people are here thinking about how to work at this with their families, some people are maybe looking at ways that they can help other people. But one thing I would suggest is that maybe what we can think about is how do we work as a team in your family or your friend group? You know, maybe you are not part of, maybe you're not, you live alone. There's not other people in your household with you. Maybe there are. Maybe there's a friendship group that's very important to you. Who are the, you know, who is your community? But can you work as a team in your community or in your family? And we're going to look at 4 ways that we can work individually and as a team, whether we are parents or whether we're trying to help somebody else, or we're trying to figure out how to keep ourselves as safe as possible online. So we're going to work as a team. So we're going to think about, how do we talk about this? How do we explore safely? We're going to talk about agreeing and how to manage. So if we'll go to the next slide, we'll start with talking about staying safe online. Right before everybody, a lot of you came on there, we were talking a little bit about, there was some discussion about, you know, we just don't talk about this enough. So here's our chance to talk about this. And you can talk about this in your family, and you can talk about this with your friends. You can talk about this with people that you are working with. And we can start really basic, because depending on how old someone is or what their abilities are, you know, there can be some older people who really don't know much about the internet. There can be some very young people who are just learning about the internet, and there are people all in between. And we heard tonight, you know, thinking about, as we get older, how do things change, and how do we use the internet well? So talking to the people around you in your community about how do you stay safe? What are the things that you do? What are the things that bother you about the internet, and what can we do about that? So starting with really basic things, like on my screen here, I have some really basic things like where reporting functions are. If you are playing a game and somebody gets really mean, or somebody is cheating, or somebody is swearing, or whatever it is that someone is doing, do you know how to report that person? Look for the reporting functions on whatever apps you're using. How do you report? And if you don't know, if you can't find it, you can ask somebody to help you find that. But you can also do a search. You can search and find out, how do I report? How do I report something on Roblox? And it can tell you exactly how to do that. But lots of times, you know, the report buttons are pretty obvious, and we can use those easily. So know where your reporting functions are. So if someone is doing something that is harmful or upsetting, or, you know, against that community's rules, then report that. That's what that's for. So where are the reporting functions? So that's one good way to help people stay safe. Also, how do you block? So whether it's on your phone, whether it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on, you know, email, you know, whatever it is, how do you block this person? So again, there are so many different platforms out there and so many different devices. If you don't know how to do that, and someone that's around you doesn't know how to do that either, then you can do a search. Again, you know, the internet is great for giving us all kinds of information. So you can have a look, see what other people are saying, get some other feedback, learn how to do these things. So how to block someone. So block and report, I'd say, are 2 of our best friends on the internet. And it's okay to use them. If someone is saying things that are hurtful or upsetting to you, you can block that person. You don't have to let that into your life, into your brain, into your space. You can block that person. And then, do we know how to keep information private? So that's another thing that you want to think about on your device. Where are your privacy settings? If you have a phone, you can go into settings, and there's a place where it talks about privacy. What privacy settings do you want to use? If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, if you're on TikTok, you know, what are the privacy settings? And I would encourage you to really use those. Use them a lot, because it helps us keep people out that we don't want to be seeing our things. So keeping our information private, not just what we post, but just our personal information too, being really careful that we don't give out that personal information, that sometimes people can kind of get sneaky with trying to get that personal information from us. So kind of having also in our mind, what is my personal information and what am I never going to share online? Or what am I never going to share online unless there's a really good reason? If I might decide I'm never going to tell somebody where I live. I'm never going to share my address. But then you want to buy something on Amazon. So, right, you got to share your address, right? Otherwise, they're not going to send it to you. So sometimes you've got to you break some of those rules, but sort of having in your mind, what's private for me and how am I going to keep that private? All right. I also want to say that you probably all know this a lot more than I do too, but technology is changing so fast. It changes all the time. And every time we think we got it figured out and we're going to take care of this and now we're safe and we don't have to think about this anymore, something changes. Now we got to learn something else. Something new comes along we're trying to figure out, and it's not a static thing. So staying safe online and staying safe on social media is always going to be something we're going to have to be thinking about and talking about with other people, because we're never going to have it all figured out, because something new is right around the corner, and everything we think we knew now maybe isn't working in the same way anymore. So it's hard to keep up with all of that, but we want to still try to be proactive as much as we can and think about this. So here are a couple of things that I would suggest. First of all, if you are working with a family, it's your family, you have kids, you are trying to figure out how to handle this with your kids, maybe your friendship group or whoever it is, but maybe set some ground rules, especially when we're working with kids of all ages. What are the ground rules? What are the family rules? What can you agree on? And maybe maybe the adults sort of think of these through a little bit ahead of time, but then have a conversation as a family as well and include your kids, regardless of how old they are, and obviously this is going to change depending on the age of your children. And then of course, as they age, it's all going to need to be discussed again and again and again. But, have that conversation with your family. What are your family rules? What are the ground rules? What does privacy mean in your family? What is okay to share and what is not okay to share? Is it okay to download things without getting permission? Is it okay to purchase things without permission? When or never? As a family, talking about those things and just kind of making it clear to everyone, this is how, as a family, we're going to handle the internet. And if you like to work with somebody else, a friend, you can also have these kinds of conversations with a friend too. Another thing I would ask you to consider is how much time is okay to spend online. And that's a tricky one, because just like chocolate or sugar, other forms of sugar, or salty foods or cigarettes or alcohol, those things trigger our brains. That it makes us feel really good. It triggers that dopamine. We get that hit, and we really like it, and we want to keep using it. We want to keep eating it. We want to keep doing it. The internet is the same way. It's not something we're putting into our bodies, but it is something we're putting into our brains, and we're finding that it can be addictive, similar to sugar or drugs and alcohol or anything like that. So considering for yourself or in your family, how much time am I going to give to my social media feeds? How much time am I going to spend on Amazon? How much time am I going to spend looking at the news? And sort of thinking for yourself, where are those boundaries? Where are those boundaries for myself? Where are the boundaries for my family? Because we're going to have to help kids set those boundaries, because we as adults can get caught up, you're looking at the latest funny cat video and suddenly it's 2 hours later and you're just thinking, where did the time go? Wow. It happens to us too as adults. So you can imagine it's just that much harder for kids. to regulate that and to decide, okay, I'm going to stop now. So finding ways that we decide how much time is okay, and moving our bodies, and having face-to-face interactions with people, doing those things that are also healthy for our brains and our bodies outside of the internet. So having those kind of discussions with your family or with your friends or with important people in your life. How do I manage this so that I can keep this healthy in my life?
Can I say something, please?
Sure.
I was thinking, because you know what? I looked up something on the internet like not too long ago called parasocial relationships. It's a relationship. It's a one-sided relationship you have with an internet celebrity or someone you hardly know. Like it could be a cosplayer, it could be a famous singer or something, it could be local and stuff. And sometimes having a parasocial relationship can be damaging because you lose all track of awareness and stuff, and you kind of come in the obsession saying, "Oh, I want to be with this person all the time," but still, and it's really Hades on earth because this person, you have nothing in common with this person because this person happens to be unavailable for whatever reason and stuff, and you get caught up, which could lead to you being accused of harassing and stuff. Because I know people on the spectrum tend to get over focused. I tend to get over focused sometimes to certain people, but as you get like certain celebrities, as you get older and stuff, you have to understand something that you have to differentiate what a social relationship is and a parasocial relationship is, and not confuse the latter with reality and stuff. It's sometimes built in fantasy, and it becomes damaging because you're looking for any excuse to get to this celebrity or something, and the point is that you and this person aren't in the cards.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about boundaries. That is a really good point. We are going to talk about boundaries, boundaries that we set, and recognizing boundaries that others set. And that's a very important thing to be mindful of when we're online. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to talk about that more here in just a minute. I just want to give a couple of more just little quick things that you might want to think about. And then we are going to talk about that idea of boundaries.
Yeah, I have trouble setting boundaries too.
Yeah, boundaries, that's tough. That's tough for a lot of us to set boundaries. And it's tough sometimes to accept other people's boundaries when they're telling us things that we don't really want to hear. Yeah. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So maybe in your family, set some rules, think about how you're going to use the internet. And if you don't have somebody to talk to about that, you can make your own kind of internet policy, that you're going to follow. You can just say, here are some rules for me that I'm going to keep in mind, and I'm going to set them right here beside my computer, or I'm going to have them right here where I can see them to remind me that these are the rules that I'm going to follow to help me stay safe and have a really good internet experience and a social media experience. So we can do that with our kids. We can do that on our own. We can do it with friends. All right. There are lots of good online tools. There are lots of, for kids, there's something called NetSmarts, which is a website that you can look at. NetSmarts is the name of it. And they have all kinds of fun little videos that talk about privacy and talk about staying safe. So there are a lot of, those kinds of online tools that are kind of fun to look at and remind us, how we can best use the internet. We want to be smart about the messages we send. We want to think about privacy. This idea of setting boundaries, and attached to that, I think, is also the idea of consent. So first of all, we all have boundaries, and boundaries are those limits or those sort of ways that we expect to be treated. We like if people call us a name or say something mean to us, that is crossing a boundary. We don't want to be treated that way. Or if somebody walks up to us and punches us, obviously that is crossing a boundary. We don't want to be treated that way. Maybe you've had this experience. If you own a pickup truck, and people may be always asking you to borrow that pickup truck, they need help moving this thing. Maybe they want to borrow you too to help move this thing. And, maybe it's hard to say no, or maybe you feel obligated, but you might feel like those boundaries are being crossed there. So boundaries can be our things too. So boundaries can happen, are part of our life, the way we want to be treated, how we feel when other people treat us certain ways. We all know where our boundaries are. Usually we know when somebody crosses them, that we don't like what they're doing and it doesn't feel right. Now, sometimes, you mentioned being on the autism spectrum, and there are other things that make it hard for us sometimes to even know that we have boundaries. And especially depending on your abilities or your body, sometimes people get a lot of extra help. They just need help caring for their bodies. They need help. Maybe they have a lot of medical issues. So somebody's always looking at their body or poking at their body or touching their bodies. And sometimes we can forget that even though this is happening, sometimes we forget that we still have the right to decide when people touch our bodies, or how people touch our bodies, or how they say things to us, or how they treat us. We have the right to decide what is okay with us. And I think especially teaching children early on, and then remembering it all through adulthood, that we have the right to decide what is okay and what is not okay. So that when somebody crosses those boundaries in a way that's really harmful, we recognize that. And we recognize that it's not okay that somebody does this. We don't just accept, well, that's just the way things are and I just have to put up with it. We can decide, no, I don't like this and I don't want this to happen. So having that idea that we all have boundaries, the way we want people to treat us, and boundaries around our bodies and around our things, that we want people to treat that respectfully. Now, the other side of that, Joseph, you were talking about some, is boundaries for other people. Other people have boundaries too. And it can be hard for us also sometimes to notice other people's boundaries. Sometimes, again, you mentioned the autism spectrum. Sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes people on the autism spectrum have a little trouble reading people's facial expressions and understanding what they're really saying, or taking those cues when other people think they're letting you know that their boundaries are being crossed, but you're not seeing it the same way. So it can get tricky. But paying attention to other people's boundaries too, that maybe what I said, maybe I meant it to be nice, but maybe the other person didn't like what I said. Or maybe I thought it was a compliment, but the other person didn't take it that way. Or maybe the other person just doesn't want me to give them a compliment. They don't want those kinds of things from me. So that's part of boundaries too. Mm-hmm.
I made a few policies for stuff, new photography guidelines. So a couple of them is, one of them is, in the event of overwhelming anxiety, I will not operate the camera. I will prioritize mental health over obsessive ambition. I will no longer try too hard to gain someone's acceptance so I can photograph them. I don't always need to sell a pitch just to climb the social ladder. And I'm a self-film photographer. I like to photograph different toys and stuff so I can Photoshop them in different things.
Mm-hmm.
I can make art or something. But then again, people can be narrow-minded and make assumptions. I'm a hardcore iPhone photographer of different things and stuff. People might think it's for still, but it's just to make art,
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make a policy. I want to reduce the number of selfie photos when I go shopping going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
being really aware that other people might misunderstand or see it differently, or might just be upset by something that we might think is okay. Yeah, so that's part of this boundary. So yeah, you're setting those things for yourself. That's good. That's good. All right. So also kind of part of boundaries is also the idea of consent. Now, especially when we are thinking about relationships, or even it can be the way we talk to each other, but it can also be touching relationships or sexual relationships that happen online, and talking about that too. You know, what does consent mean? We all have the right to decide what we want and what we don't want. It's not okay to pressure somebody for something, and it's or to make them feel like they have to, or to feel like we have to do something that doesn't feel right to us. So having those gut feelings, paying attention to those gut feelings, as parents, honoring those feelings in our children, encouraging them to express when something is not okay with them. Now, you can certainly work at teaching them how to do that appropriately, but you know, what are some ways that they can express their boundaries, or when they feel that their boundaries are being crossed? You know, what is okay with you? An example that I lots of times use with parents is, okay, Great Aunt Sally comes to visit, and Great Aunt Sally wants to give your 4-year-old a hug and a kiss, and your 4-year-old is afraid of Great Aunt Sally and really doesn't want to give Great Aunt Sally a hug and a kiss. Now, it can be really hard because you feel like, you know, you don't want Aunt Sally to feel upset. You don't want to be rude. She's an elder. You want to be respectful. So how do you manage that with also teaching your 4-year-old that it is okay to say when something doesn't feel okay for you? So do you offer to, okay, can you give Aunt Sally a high five instead of a hug and a kiss? Would that be okay? Can you say hi to Aunt Sally? So maybe offering some of those alternatives where you're still letting your child know that it is okay for them to set their boundaries sometimes, but they need to do that appropriately, and you're going to help them do that and teach them what are appropriate boundaries as well. And if we start that pretty young, that's going to help. And I know that doesn't always sound like it fits in with the internet, but it lays that groundwork for things that come up online where a child isn't quite sure how to act. Maybe they feel like this is an authority figure, or maybe this is somebody older than them and they feel like they have to be compliant. If we lay that groundwork early, that it's okay to be aware of your boundaries, it's okay to notice when you're not feeling comfortable, it's okay to refuse something that doesn't feel right, that you can trust your gut and then come to an adult when something like this happens. That's laying the groundwork, and also helps when you're dealing with internet safety.
Also,
things are gonna come up. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't mean to take over the conversation.
Go ahead.
But I like to mention something about like, especially with AI or something, like people are very cynical about their photos being appropriate for AI and stuff. Like, I would never use photos for AI or anything. I would use photos for Photoshop and stuff, without explicit authorization. That's why I have people sign release forms or something. If they give me verbal authorization, that's fine too, but I prefer release forms. But if they're in the public eye, that's one thing. But we're talking about people who are not really that famous or something, to be very careful about different things and stuff. If I do a Photoshop thing, I make sure it's with explicit authorization, and I make sure people know what these photos are being used for, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, I went to Point Park and stuff, but I was taught about the importance of using release forms anytime I go out into the field or something, that sort of thing. I'm very methodical about how I do things. I'm making sure everything is done by the book, explicit authorization or stuff. I never post any human beings to Facebook. The only thing when I joined Facebook, I posted pictures of dogs, food, like pets, food, locations, that sort of thing. But when on Instagram, I post a photo shoot, I get explicit authorization to have release forms and stuff, that sort of thing. And I'm very careful about which I Photoshop and stuff, because I don't want people to misinterpret things and stuff. I'm very specific or something. I almost posted a burning marshmallow video and stuff, but then again, I vetoed the idea last minute because I don't want people to mistake things for a current event or something, because when you see something burning, it could trigger a different event. I know it might sound absurd, but I'm very sensitive to the needs of mankind, and I use explicit theory of mind when I do different things.
Well, Joseph, it sounds like you are thinking a lot about boundaries and how to protect other people's boundaries too. Good for you.
Can I say something?
Sure.
My name is Naina. I just want to say that I did really good. Like when somebody was selling bracelets,
Mhm.
like to razor tap shoes, I wasn't sure if safe or not. So I checked with my director, and she said because I know the person, she said it was okay for me to buy from them.
Okay.
They're
If it
coming-
was something that you wanted, yeah.
and they're coming here.
I'm glad that you
They're
checked that
on
out with,
Facebook.
yeah, I'm glad that you checked that out with somebody before you agreed it was something that you wanted to do. That is an excellent way of staying safe online, is always to check it out with somebody first.
Yep.
Yeah, good job. All right, Melissa, if we could go back one, I think we had, okay, explore. For the parents in the group, another thing that you can do is explore with your kids what they are really into right now. You know, what is exciting to them? How are they spending their time online? Or I'm finding that sometimes a tactic that works is, hey, how do you play this game? You know, how does this work? Can you show me? And then sit there and you're watching them, because they love, lots of times, depending on the age of them, but I'm finding even older kids love to show you what they know and show you their skill. So it's a great way to sort of see what they're into, what is going on in their online world, by just asking them, you know, show me what you're doing, show me your skills. I'm sorry, the sun is setting behind me and I'm trying to keep that glare away, but I'm not having much luck. Okay. I should have rethought that before I sat down, where I decided where to sit here this evening. Okay, I'm going to keep turning around here to hopefully.
You get comfortable, Kim. It's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. The sun is so tricky.
I didn't realize how the sun comes in. All right, there, that looks a little better. Okay, so ask them to show you their skill. Another thing, just asking some questions, you know, well, who do you play with and who do you talk to when you play your games? You know, what kinds of pictures do you like to post if you're on Instagram or something like that, you know, those kinds of apps? You know, what do you like to post about? And just conversation kind of things. And it doesn't have to be prying, you know, just, I find I don't have any kids in my home anymore, but I have a grandchild. So I'm off, you know, she's usually very willing to share with me, because she sees me, you know, as knowing nothing. So she's very willing to share with me what she's doing, and she'll show me things, I think sometimes, that she doesn't share with her parents because she feels like they will.
Mom, come see this.
Yeah. So, you know, but express interest in what they're doing. So explore the world, explore the online world together. And then that gives you a chance to have conversations too, especially when we're dealing with kiddos. All right, let's go to the next one. So do you recognize any of these apps? What do you see there?
I only
Snap.
know one of them, and it's the top left, and that's Snapchat.
Okay.
I can't
All
help you with any of the other ones.
Okay, yeah, that is Snapchat.
Instagram second, TikTok.
Yep, Instagram is there, TikTok is there. Yeah.
Forget the other two. I think that's calculator.
Yeah, you know,
OnlyFans.
I don't know that one either. I don't know if anybody knows that one with the plus and times and equal signs there. I'm not sure what that one
I know
is.
what OF is. OnlyFans. It's a real Hornets. I have little spoiler for all yins.
I believe. Oh, go ahead, Jonathan,
OnlyFans.
sorry.
OnlyFans is a real hornet's nest. You
Yeah.
gotta watch your flank at all times.
Yeah, we
Don't-
hear, yeah, there's a lot of positive and negative about that one for sure.
Yeah, that's something you don't dabble with.
Yep. Okay.
Am I-
Melissa,
I think
Yeah,
the
and the-
calculator one is the Vault app that hides and stores secret. It's not actually a calculator.
right.
It's a place to hide information
Yeah.
on your phone,
Right.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Tammy, were you trying to get in there?
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
Tam.
Melissa, you said exactly what I was going to say. It's kind of a disguise app. So when the parents look at it, they think that, oh, it's a calculator, but it's actually a social media thing or a way of connecting with others that keeps the parents out of the loop.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been hearing more and more about vaults and the things that, the ways that people can hide. And there are some very good uses for vaults, too. So it's not that they're all bad, but, people find out how to use them. Kids find out, okay, this is a way that I can be in my math class and on social media, and I'm allowed to have my calculator in math class. So as long as I have my phone up to a calculator, the teacher's not going to say anything. They're not going to see, they're not going to know, and I can be on social media while I'm listening to my math class. So yeah, so that's an example of a vault. And there are others too that people can use.
Except the thing is, teachers aren't dense. They know what kids are planning. Teachers are not dense by any means of the imagination.
No, teachers are catching on too. And teachers, I don't know if there are any, I think there were some educators in our group here tonight. That's a real challenge. It's been a real challenge. The phones in school have been a real challenge for people. All right, let's go on. So yeah, so we have all of these lovely apps. Some are good, some are not. So something else that you can do in either your family or in your friend group, or just as you're thinking about your own internet usage, agree what is okay and what is not okay. So what is okay to share and why? What am I okay with? What does privacy mean? What does privacy mean to our family? What does privacy mean to me as an individual? And these are questions going to really depend on the age of the person as you think about what this means to you. I think about, my kids are in their early 20s, and their idea of privacy is very different from my idea of privacy. And, they are much more comfortable sharing all kinds of things that I feel like I do not feel comfortable with. Or if I had a 10-year-old, I would not feel comfortable with my 10-year-old sharing. So having those conversations that grow with your family, what's okay to share, why, the more you can put a why with it, of course, depending on the age of your child, you don't want to, when they start to glaze over, it's time to move on. But, try to have those conversations about why you feel the way you do and why you have the rules in your family that you have. Be positive about what you see. Be positive, acknowledge the internet is great. And yes, it has a big part of it's a big part of our lives. It has a big place in our lives. And there's a lot of positive about it, but there are some concerns too. And let's also be real about those and talking about those in our families. Involve your families, your kiddos, especially in the conversation as much as you can. Again, depending on the age of your child, having those conversations. I mentioned I have a granddaughter, and there is a social media app that she wants badly. She is 12. She wants this thing badly. And she came up with a whole list of reasons why her parents should allow her to use this app. And she presented her case. Her parents listened very patiently. She did not get the app, but, they shared with her, again, the reasons why. They told her how much they appreciated the fact that she thought about this so carefully, but at this time, they still didn't feel like it was appropriate for her. But talking about these things, having those conversations, involving them in them, and then reassuring your child that they can always talk to you about anything. Now, when I'm in schools talking to kids about internet safety, a lot of them will say, I will hear often that, especially with kids, I'm not going to tell my parents because I'll get kicked off. They'll take my device, or they'll ground me, or I won't be allowed to be on this anymore. So I'm just going to deal with it. And even when I talk to my granddaughter, who are you going to talk to if you have a problem online? And she says, my friends. So we've got a bunch of 12-year-olds trying to navigate this together.
That could lead to a very dystopian turn of events, a cataclysmic affair, if you will. Because first of all, I went to school with a woman, I don't know if Ian's are familiar with, but I went to school with a girl named Alicia Kosachevich. She was kidnapped in 2002 by a guy she saw online because she posted photos of herself modeling and stuff, and it made her easy prey for online predators. I remember the guy named Scott Tyree kidnapped her and held her prisoner until the FBI found her. As a result, she transferred schools and stuff, and since then, nobody asks to be put in this position, but we have to be very careful what to do now, and that's why she runs an organization that prevents her from falling in the same trap as different things and stuff. And to shift gears, we're dealing with YouTube pranksters that do things that are unsavory, like harass customers and stuff. I watched prank videos not to laugh at them or something, because just to look at the downfall of how humanity's doing things and stuff, like moaning people's ears and stuff, and like using a past gas prank or something, and just random buffoonery and stuff you wouldn't do anywhere else. And it's kind of depressing and stuff, because a lot of kids are think it's fine to do so because they're setting a poor example for us to do things.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Joseph. Yeah. There are definitely, all of those things are why we're having this talk tonight, because we want to try to avoid those kinds of things. And I see Aaron is saying also in the chat that as adult children and grandchildren, we're also needing to help parents and grandparents navigate the internet too. We hear a lot about elders being scammed, and scammers are very good at fooling people, absolutely. And so, yeah, some of us are seeing it from both ends. We're trying to help our parents, we're trying to help our kids, we're trying to, navigate it ourselves. And it feels almost like a full-time job sometimes, just trying to deal with all of this. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, but going back to the kids too, maybe talking with your kids also about, I know that if we all make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes sometimes online. I make mistakes sometimes online too. And we need to be honest and open about our mistakes so that we can work on them together and figure out what to do when we make mistakes. And yeah, I'll try not to be real mad, but I might be mad a little bit, but please understand, I just want to keep you safe. And I want to keep our whole family safe, but please come to me. And what I often tell kids too will be things like, yeah, your parents might be upset. They might be worried. They might, because they really want to protect you. They want to keep you safe. And they might be a little bit mad, but they're going to be a whole lot less mad if you're willing to tell them when you mess up. Just be honest. Look, I messed up. I'm really sorry. I need your help. They're probably going to help you. So, encouraging your kids that, yeah, I know that we all make mistakes, and please come to me. And give them an alternative. If you don't feel like, you feel like you're too afraid to come to me about something, who are other people that you can identify that you will go to? Not your 12-year-old friend, but, who's somebody else in your family? Well, Aunt Lindsay helped me, or, Uncle Matt, or, who can you go to where they can maybe feel like, they can be honest and open, and maybe they won't, they don't have to be so worried about the person being as afraid as them being angry, like their parents might be angry. So maybe also brainstorming with your kids, who can you go to? I hope it's me. I want it to be me, and I'll try, not to be real mad, and, I will help you. But here are some other people that will help you too. And remind them who their community is so that they have a backup plan if something goes really wrong online. Okay, let's move on. So the social part of social media, what I was talking about there, be selective in your responses, just being careful about how you respond to your kids. We mess up too as parents. Parenting is incredibly hard. It is incredibly hard. And this stuff, it makes it not any easier for sure. So just trying to be patient with our kids, and, just like in everything else, we try to teach them and how to be safe. Just do the best we can, apologize when we lose it, when we mess up, and then pick it up and go on. There will always be things that you miss, no matter how much you try, no matter how much you look. There will be things that you miss. These vault apps, they've been fooling people for a while. So those are things. They're very difficult to detect. I'll go back to my granddaughter again. She wanted this. I told you she wanted this social media app. She wanted this thing so badly. Her friend, okay, we're talking 12-year-olds, her friend helped her download this app onto her phone. And they did it in such a way that it would be hidden from her parents. Now, these are 12-year-olds doing this. And my granddaughter, being the person she is, confessed to her parents. She kept it quiet for about 2 days, and then she confessed. So my son-in-law is a software engineer. He is extremely computer literate. It took him an entire afternoon to get this thing off her phone. So I don't know how this 12-year-old did it, but it took a software engineer all afternoon to get it off. So, there are going to be things that we miss. So that's why, going back to our earlier conversation about, let's talk about how to stay safe. What are the boundaries? What are your boundaries? What are our family rules? Can you give them those tools that kind of undergird when they are faced with these choices or faced with these opportunities to participate in something that other people are participating in and they feel like they're being left out, or, they're being pressured into something or some sort of behavior or whatever. Can we give them those tools that undergird their decision-making before they're faced with it? Because we can't be there all the time. So how can we help them? All right, don't let notifications disrupt you. This is kind of for all of us. Those notifications going off all the time, day and night. We have choices about that. You can turn those notifications off, or you can refuse to let them disrupt you. I'm not going to look at that right now. I'm doing this. I'm driving. I don't need to look at that notification right this moment. I can wait until I get home in 15 minutes and then look. But we get that feeling, the internet kind of feeds into that this immediacy, that we need to do this now, that we need to check. What if we miss that fear of missing out, right? So those notifications can just trigger something in our brain that then changes our behavior. So think about notifications and how you're going to manage those. I think one of the biggest things, also to teach kids, but also to keep in mind ourselves, don't compare your behind the scenes with everybody else's highlight reel, okay? Our day-to-day can just be monotonous, not all that exciting. Maybe we're in a bad place right now and things aren't going that well and we don't feel that great. And then we look at all of our friends or all of these other people and their lives are perfect. Look at this. They're going these places. They're doing these things. They're having all of these experiences. Everything is wonderful for them. What's wrong with me? Why am I not having that same experience? So keeping in mind that people usually put out the best of the best. They're not sharing all of the behind the scenes, day to day. We all have stuff. Maybe I don't have a lot of stuff right now, but I might tomorrow or next week, or I'm just coming out of a lot of stuff. And right now it's not so bad, but we all have stuff, and keeping that into perspective, especially teens and preteens are, they're so susceptible to all my friends are perfect and I'm not. What's wrong with me? So the self-esteem, the self-concept, obviously can continue to be a difficult thing to navigate. It's hard for us to navigate as adults. And you can imagine as kids who are so in tune to their friends and their social status, and fitting in, conforming, how hard it is for them to keep that in mind. Mindful limits.
I was just going to share something
Please.
About that. I hadn't thought about this in forever, but when the pandemic first started and everyone was, at home and spending way more time on social media than I probably needed to because there wasn't too much else to do. And, I'm seeing friends taking up cooking classes and they're exercising and and I wasn't doing any of that. Like
Mhm.
I was really having a hard time with the interruption in my normal day. You know what I mean? And I kept feeling like, well, how come this person's out doing this and that person's out doing that? But then if you actually talk to like if you actually have a conversation with them, that was their highlight reel. Maybe they were struggling too, but they didn't want to share that. You know what I mean? So I always, when you said that, I started thinking about that time period where, we were all kind of stuck at home and, maybe we were doing a little bit more comparing with others than we should have been. You know what I mean? For our own mental well-being. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, keeping in mind the limits, keeping in mind that I talked about that a little bit before, but just, how much time are we spending online? How much time are we spending on social media? Can we put limits on ourselves? Can we help our kids put limits on themselves too and do other things, have face-to-face interactions, get out, move your body, get up, move around, go outside, do some other things. Keep it in balance. Use the internet, but also recognize that our bodies are meant to move. We need to do some other things as well. And as parents, I think it is so important to model that for kids. We can tell our kids, go outside and play, and if we're sitting there on our device all the time, we're giving them a very strong message. Not by what we say, but what we're doing. So keeping in mind that limits for all of us is important. And obviously they can be different depending on somebody's age and all of that. But, modeling responsible use, I guess is what I want to say. Actively seek ways to interact with friends away from social media. Helping your kids do that, can they get together and go do something or meet up at the park or, whatever. And again, modeling that as adults too, that we interact online, but we also interact in person and we seek to keep that balanced. Okay, let's move on. All right, next slide, please. All right, so you want to manage your family settings and controls. We've talked about some of this a little bit, but here are just some practical tips. Review your security settings on your devices, on your social media platforms. What are your security settings? Are you set to private? Are you using GPS location? Are you allowing anybody to know? A lot of the times it'll pop up. They want this site wants to know your location. Do you give permission? And then you can decide yes or no. How are you thinking about that? Are you going ahead and allowing all of your location to be shared without really thinking about who has it and where it's going? Or are you consciously deciding and letting our kids know too about, those location finders and things like that? What are your parental controls for the parents in the group? What are your parental controls? Do you have them? Are you using them? There are a lot of internet resources about that can help you think about parental controls. I know there are some families that they just shut off the internet. It gets turned off at a certain time for everybody. And, whether that's for good sleep or just quality family time or whatever it is, but, it gets turned off. So nobody's using it after a certain time. Maybe devices are kept out of the bedrooms at nighttime when we're sleeping. So what are some of those things that you do around your parental controls to help your kids keep all of this in perspective? I would encourage you to think about disabling the GPS location on your photos, on your apps. You can turn it on and off depending on when you're using it. But if you're not needing it to navigate with Google Maps or something, maybe you don't have to have it on right now. So getting comfortable to going into the settings and looking at those and deciding, when I need this and when I don't need this. And that's another thing to have conversations with your kids around as well. Okay, I see a raised hand. Jasmine.
So I have a perfect example for this. This happened today. I go to a program called Cares, and I was out in the community with staff and some friends, and I was trying to figure out how to send my location to my mom because we were pretty much lost because my staff ended up losing the car. So I couldn't figure out how to send my location so she could come pick me up. But what ended up happening is my bars end up dropping and I couldn't send it.
Ah, yeah. When we don't have service, boy, that messes everything up. Did somebody help you figure out how to solve that problem?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, helping each other out. That's what we got to do. Good. I think also another thing to always remember is that the internet is public space. It's not private. And we tend to forget that because it feels so private when we're using, especially social media. It feels like, we're very private with this person or this group, but it's public space. And no matter how much we delete things from our history or whatever, there are still traces. There are cookies on almost every site that we use that monitors what we do, tracks, takes information. And it's just always remembering that, being very aware that the internet is public. It is a public space. And then reminding our kids about that too. It feels so private, but it is very public. And there are consequences to that in the information that gets out and things like that. So use those privacy settings, make sure your internet connection is secure, beware of public Wi-Fi, some of those common things that we hear that—
Do not use those. They are very dangerous and your phone could get hacked.
Well, you definitely don't want to use them to do anything really private.
Especially if it says Xfinity, don't use it.
Well,
Don't click it.
Yeah, watch the public Wi-Fi. Yeah, you want to make sure your internet connection is secure. Antivirus protection is definitely good. Watch the downloads. Does it look suspicious? Look for that. Like if you look up there, I don't know if you can see it in your screen right now or not, but up there where it says meet.google.com, there's that little padlock. And if you see that little padlock beside the address, the internet address, then you are on a secure site. So that's something to pay attention to. And if you see the HTTP, make sure there's an S after it as well. HTTPS. Before most internet addresses, it's going to have that www. And then HTTPS. If it's missing the S, that could be a problem. So you want to look out for that. So there are some things like that you can watch for that might tip you off that maybe your internet is not secure or something is suspicious. Okay, always change your passwords. That's an easy thing. It's irritating and maybe we just don't really think about it that much, but changing those passwords and having secure passwords, good strong passwords help a lot. Be careful who you meet online and offline, especially. Always take somebody with you. Let somebody know who you're with and where you're going. With kiddos, I always tell them, you need to have an adult with you. And there's just no exceptions to that. Even as adults, sometimes I think we should have adults with us, just to be on the safe side, just to be safe, just to be safe.
And also, when you're on Instagram or something, be careful who you follow and who you don't follow or something, because if something looks a little bit off or someone says something, I got two examples. One example, stuff like if you're on Instagram, you don't know what, like they might say cosplay or stuff, but then again, there might be something a little suggestive. So I had them like removed from like recommendations because of different questionable things. And also, when you're on the internet and someone uses the R word, stand your ground and saying, hey, this is not acceptable or something. If someone doesn't, I left a couple of groups or something because they were so toxic as Hades, even though I post photos and stuff on occasion, but not as a member of the group. Because someone used the R word or something, I told him, hey, I don't like the R word or something. That really bothers me. Please don't use it. And he was like free speech. And he's like free speech or something. And you know what? Free speech, my left bionic foot. No, you don't do that with me.
See, that's boundaries. That's what we were talking about earlier. Those are those boundaries. And being a good bystander. That's another thing you were doing there too, Joseph, is being a good bystander and saying, it's not okay to say those things. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's not accepted here. So yeah, being a good bystander. Also, we all have the power to do that as well. All right, so we need to keep rolling here because we are almost out of time. And let's just finish up here. So I wanted to this slide is just kind of a reminder that photos can sometimes give locations. So often we don't think about that. We take a picture of ourselves with our phone, we send it to somebody else, or we post it online, and we're not realizing that what we're also doing is giving somebody our location information. Often, especially if your location is turned on your device, it will be embedded in your photo where that photo was taken. And you can go into your phone, you can see those things. Sometimes it'll give the GPS coordinates. Sometimes it'll show you on a map where the photo was taken. And it's supposed to be a really easy and nice function, to help us out. Oh, I don't remember where I was when I took that picture. So now here it tells me that, it helps me out. But it also can be used negatively by people to find out where you are. So that's another reason to maybe think about those location, how often do you keep that location finder on your phone? And if we go to the next slide, you can go into settings on your device. If we can, okay.
Sorry,
I guess that's okay. Let's go to the next.
This one?
Yeah, this is just another way it can show you with, you see the coordinates, you can see the map.
This
and
one.
then-
Sorry.
Yeah, here we go. Here is, a phone screen. You can go into your settings and you go right there where it says location. You can choose then when to have that location on and when to have it off. Jasmine, when you were trying to let your mom know your location, you needed to have that on. But if you are sending photos of yourself out just in general on your social media, you might decide to turn that off before you take the picture.
And I didn't know I had it off, so I turned it on because I only took a picture of the place of where I was, but I wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And I noticed that my bars was down, so I couldn't send it to my mom. And I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah, technology is great when it works. Sometimes it doesn't work for us. All right, well, let's keep going. So, we talked about, let's talk about it. Let's explore together. Let's agree on some rules, this is our family internet safety policy, or this is my personal internet policy, and then how to manage like some of those settings and your privacy settings. And there are all kinds of tutorials online that can help us do that. Okay, onward. Okay, so they shared too much. Now what? Whether it's your kids or somebody else, a friend, they shared something and now they're really regretting. Things are, people are making comments and they feel really bad. Be supportive. We all make mistakes. People can be mean. Let's just, try to ignore it. You're still a good person. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes. Be supportive. Actively listen. Try to remain calm. Now, if you're a parent and your kid comes to you and I really messed up and here is what I did and now I don't know what to do, try to remain calm. You might be feeling a lot, but try to remain calm. Avoid blaming them. Let's just deal with the problem. Okay, I'm really glad you told me. All right, let's see what we can do about this. You can have a conversation later about, okay, what went wrong here? And let's think about what we're going to do differently next time. But in the moment, try to remain calm, avoid blaming, answer any questions that they have, and then seek support. What are some supports online that you can use where you can report things or get some help? Your internet service provider is often a first go-to. You can go to the site. Sometimes the administrator of the social media platform is a place where you can go and you can make a complaint. You can report things. You can ask to have things removed. Your internet service provider might also be a help there. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. There are some support services, some resources out there. Now, this one, Cyber Tip Line, is mainly for if someone, especially children, are being sexually exploited or they're missing. So that's a resource for that. there, yeah, you can look again online that you can get all this information, but Cyber Tip Line is going to be primarily for missing and sexually exploited children. It's a reporting center. Safe to Say Something. This is for Pennsylvania. It's a school safety reporting system, and it accepts tips from students or parents or educators, concerned community members on anything, whether you're worried about some kind of violence happening in the community, you're worried about perhaps someone is going to, so you have a reason to suspect someone might be thinking about suicide, guns, drugs, any kind of threatening behavior, you're aware of bullying or cyberbullying, any kind of victimization that might impact students or impact schools. This is where you can go to report any of that. So Safe to Say Something, Safe to Say Something PA, that will help you report anything that you know about. So that's being that good bystander, and maybe it may not even seem like a big deal, but you never know. You never know. Sometimes people will say, I really didn't think they meant it. I thought they were just kidding. So, but report it. It never hurts. Better safe than sorry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So other supportive resources. Take It Down is also a place where it may help to remove nude or partially nude or sexually explicit photos or videos of people who are under the age of 18. So this is child pornography. It is illegal. And this is a place that can help take those things down and get them off the internet. All right, so that's another resource. There are lots of education resources. We have NetSmarts. Common Sense Media has a lot of good stuff. They a lot of good stuff for parents. They will have videos for kids. Anybody in general, if you want to know, if you want movie reviews, or something, is this good for my kid, or book, what are some good books about this? Common Sense Media, they don't just deal with the internet, they're dealing with all kinds of media, and they are a terrific resource for a lot of things. So, and you see a couple of others there that are out there as well. Okay, so lots of ways you can help. Add local hotline to your phone, to your family's phones. Who are some people that you think would be good to have? Add those into your phone. Stay informed. Talk about it. Have these conversations. I think especially with kids, what if is great. What if somebody sends you a sexy picture? What are you going to do? What would you do if somebody did that? Or,
I'm not going to respond. I'm just going to automatically block the person.
Yeah, but that's a great thing to do with kids. What if somebody says something mean to you online? What will you do? What
Block
if?
them.
Yeah. So to have those, you're just driving in the car and you do the what if game. What if? What if, and throw that out, and it gives you a chance. And they may give you some silly answer, and you can giggle and laugh and have fun with it. But then let's say, okay, now let's be serious about this. So what are we going to do? Seek support. There's lots of help out there. Yeah, like tonight, here we are trying to educate ourselves and each other. Great. All right. So any questions or anything? They
say if a child goes missing that you should only call 911. You shouldn't call any other number.
Well, that's a good place to start with your local police. Absolutely. Yeah. Good place to start.
But why do they say to call the police for children who are missing?
Well, because what they're going to do is start looking. If it's somebody in your area, you want to call the police in your area, and they're going to start looking and trying to find out where that child may be. So we start local, and then we go out from there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Remember, Blackburn Center is also a resource. We have that hotline that anybody can call, kids can call, anybody can call, ask questions, talk about things. There's that hotline number there. You have the Achieva number as well. There are lots of resources out there. So I really appreciate you coming out tonight and chiming in and giving us your input and your questions. good luck with it. It's tricky stuff.
Thank you,
Keep the
Kim.
conversation going.
Yes, I was just going to say that I think this is, in listening to you speak, it makes me think that, this isn't a one-time conversation. This is an ongoing, often conversation, because things change and all of that. So it's important to keep having these conversations over and over with your family or your friends or, anybody really, your coworkers even, you know what I mean? This is important for everyone to be aware of. So I really appreciate you being here tonight, Kim, and donating 2 hours of your time to us to share all of this information. I just found it so helpful, and the resources are just so supportive. So I really appreciate it.
I learned something new too. If you call
Did you?
998, did you know that's a health number you could call for your health?
What number? 998.
998.
Yep, that is true.
I didn't
Thank
even
you.
know that was a number.
Yep.
Thank you for this tactical briefing. This is very informative and very good to have.
Thank you, Joseph. Thanks for being a part of the
You're welcome.
conversation. It was great having you here.
Likewise, someone recommended it to me and I arrived.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad
Hey,
you guys
Joseph,
came.
you remember me?
Yeah, from 2018. How the Hades are you doing, Jasmine?
Good. Add me on Facebook. We need to talk, bruh.
Is everything
I got some
okay?
information for you.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, I got some information for you.
See,
no
we
problem.
even connected 2 old friends tonight. Who knew? You never know what's going to happen. Awesome.
Indubitably.
Well, if no one has any more questions for Kim, we'll go ahead and, end the session. But remember, I don't know if you're like me, but typically I'll leave a webinar or a session and 3 days later, I'm like, oh, I should have asked this. If you think about something in a week or a day or any other time, I will be reaching out to share resources after the webinar. You'll have my contact information. If you have any questions, please let me know. If I can't answer them or point you in the right direction, I can reach out to Kim. Yeah, Nina, go ahead.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, it was very informative.
Yeah,
You are
very
the best. I always appreciate your feedback. I thought it was an excellent presentation too. All right, everyone. Well, I will let you all go. Again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, your
Thanks,
conversation.
Melissa. We love
Thank
you.
Oh, thanks, Jazzy. All right, everyone. You guys have a great evening. We'll talk
Okay.
soon.
You too. Bye-bye.
See ya. Have a good
Bye.
night, everybody.
Bye.